Okay, let's go ahead now and we're going to build. So I'm going to show you how to actually build this application. So let's begin with the part that you're probably very familiar with, and that is the form. So here we have a form, you can see, and this is a regular Google form, nothing special. You can see that, up at the top here, I've got a name and I called it join group. So let me zoom out a little bit there, right? You can see that, join group. You can give it any name you want, but yeah, it's not really important what the names are because Google's not going to use the names for linking, but for you to stay organized, it's helpful. Let's take a look at this form. It's pretty straightforward. I think you've made forms like this before. We've got a logo at the top. So this is my negotiation class. So it's going to be an online class, and I want students to give me some information so I can organize their grades. But most importantly, I want them to join a group. And remember, I want 3 or less people in any single group. And I don't want to talk to them, and I don't want to have to give them any feedback, and I don't want to see them in person. I want this to work totally online. So what we have here is a form with a logo, and then we begin down here. First, we're going to have a user's email. And then after email, we're going to ask to join a group. So we're going to ask for a group number. So if we look here, email. Now, why do we need an email? This is, that red star means required. When you're using Google Forms, your users will need to have a Google account. So that's kind of a key drawback. But I mean, almost everybody has that, right? And even if you have a different email, like a Yahoo email, you can still use that to register to have a Google account. So when people are using the Google Forms and the Google Sheets, they will need to be logged in under Google. Otherwise, things will not work. But that aside, for the form, we're going to have this star here because you do need the email so that they are logged in under their Google account. Okay, next I want to require them to tell me what group they want to join. So here we're going to put in a number, and I've already set this to be a number. And then here we have your Chinese name, so this will be a text response, and then their English name, which is also a text response, and then their student number, which would be whatever the school's number is. This could be text or number depending on the school. In my case, it's just a number. Okay, so that's the way I'm going to make the form. It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty easy. I'm sure you've made forms much more complicated than this, right? Give me your email. Give me your group you want to join. So this could be group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. Give me your Chinese name, English name, and student number. Very straightforward. Now, if we look at this response section, we can click here and it will show us the sheet that this form is linked to. And I've already opened it here. This is the sheet, the Google Sheet that form is linked to. Now you can always tell that a Google Sheet has something linked to it, has a form linked to it, because when you look at the name of the sheet here, join group, you can see this little pink, no, it's not pink, purple. That purple icon there, that's a form icon. So that's telling you that this is linked to a form, and any data from that form is going to come in to this sheet here. And in this sheet, we have a few different columns. Timestamp is automatically put on. That's when the form sends information in, you're going to get the date and the time that it came in. I'm not going to be using that information. Email address, remember we asked the user for their email, so that'll come in here. The group they want to join, that'll come in here. Their Chinese name will be in this position. Their English name will be in this position. And their student number will be in this position. So the form sends its data right over to this sheet. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. I think everybody knows how to do that. However, we still haven't really solved the problem of how do I let people do this on their own automatically? And for that, you can see I have a number of different tabs down here at the bottom. So let's look at some of these tabs. Of course, join group is going to be linked to the form. I have some other things here like copy for payment, join group modified, choose group links, RPG import, payment. I have a lot of things here because I'm doing a lot of different things. But for this example, what we're going to be looking at are the choose group links. So if I click on this tab, you're going to see something that's very useful. What I've done here is I've designed a page that the users, the students, can see. And when they see this page here, they're going to see these links: join group 1, join group 2, join group 3. You see? And here is the group numbers. And here shows the empty seats. That is, how many positions are open on this group. Also, my students need to pay some money for their books. I need to pay the publisher for their textbooks. And so I track that here. So this example is going to have a little bit more complexity in the end, but we're going to just focus right now on the joining the group. Okay, not the payment, just the joining the group. Okay, so let's begin by just looking at the sheet. So this is a regular Google Sheet. And you can see what's really cool about a regular Google Sheet is you can go ahead and you can do many things with a Google Sheet to make it look like a web page almost. You can add a logo or a graphic like this. You can add colors. You can make your different rows different colors like this. You can make whole areas look like they're not part of a spreadsheet, but just like an empty space. You can do big text like this. So you can make your spreadsheet look almost like a web page, which is really quite useful and key to what we're going to be doing here. Now, we're going to cover later how do you show this web page? How do you show this like a web page to your user? But let's just begin here for now. What I've done is I've put onto this page over on the side a few different parameters. So for here, for example, I have the maximum number of people in a group. I've written it as 3. If I were to change this to a different number, then these empty seats would all change. Now, this number here I've gotten from another page, so I'm not going to do anything more with that. But if I did change this to 4, then all of these over here would very quickly change to 4. Right now I've got it set for 3, so we're going to just go ahead with 3. Okay. Now, how do we then get from over there, this 3, to over here? And then how do we keep track of how many students are choosing each of the groups? Well, that's where things get interesting and complicated. So we're going to go step by step very slowly here. So let's come over and let's give it a try, first of all. Let's come over to our form. Let's begin by accessing the form. Now, I could come over here and test the form. I think Google has a way to preview the form, but I'm not going to use that. I'm going to go to my class outline. This is what I use to introduce students. So I hand this out online, or this is on the school system. And then I have links like this link right here. So here is join a group. And when they click this link, that's going to take them to the form. So let's come over to the form and we can go ahead and give it a test. So in Google Forms, you can do a preview. And I think that will allow you to go ahead and test your form. So we can go ahead and I'm going to put my information in here. And I'm going to go ahead and say I want to join a group. Now remember, we're just going to test this step by step, so stick with me a little bit here. Then I can put in my Chinese name here. I got my Chinese name in there. I'm going to put my English name in here. And then my student number it's asking for. Okay, so Obviously, I'm just testing this, and then I'm going to go ahead and submit it. So that gets submitted. Now, if we come over to our sheet, and we look at the sheet that's linked to the form, remember the join group, you can see one row of data has come in. So this row of data is all the information we just now filled out. So that's working fine. And I think this is the way you have used the Google Forms and Google Sheets before. Very straightforward. Okay. However, we still have the problems we need to solve about students being able to, on their own, choose groups and have less than 3 and do things on their own. This is not going to really work for us. So we need to have a way to filter or let students know which groups have how many people in them already. And so we did look at our group links here. So if we look at our group links, we're going to go ahead and look at this formula here. So if we look at this formula very quickly, we can see it says if C2 not equal to NA, comma, J2 minus sum if join group C2 to C equals and C2 divided by C2 and then NA. All right, now that looks a little bit complicated, right? But actually this is where things get very powerful. And once you figure this out, you're going to really be able to use these sheets to collect information in very useful ways. Of course, you can use AI here to help you do these kinds of formulas. So you don't need to worry about it being super hard or complicated. The AI can really, really help you on this stuff. What do we have here? We have group 1 now has 2 empty seats. Why does it have 2 empty seats and not 3 empty seats? Because what we've done here is we've checked over at the tab Join Group. And we've gone and looked for how many people have in the C column chosen group 1. And then we add those people up. So right now it's 1 person. And then we go ahead and we subtract that from the number 3, which is over here on J2. So let's look again at this formula. It says if C2 is not NA, so C2 is here. So if it's not NA, and let me get this formula here. Here we go. If C2 is not NA, NA meaning you're not going to use it. So it would be like over here, this NA, meaning not applicable. The point is, if this is a real group, this can be a group. If it can be a group, then we're going to go ahead and we're going to take J2. Where's J2? J2 is right over here, right? J2. And we're going to go ahead and subtract that. So we're going to say J2, which is 3, subtract the sum, okay, that's the total of a value from join group. Now this is where the real power is, because this join group is the name of the tab join group. And so what we're going to do is we're going to get the information that's in join group, and we're going to specifically look at the column C2 and then colon to C. That means all of the information that's in the C column. So it's going to come over here. It's going to begin at C2, and then it's going to go all the way down and grab all that data. Now, right now, we only have one piece of data there, but it's going to grab it all. Let's look at that more closely so you can see that. C2 colon to C. Now the $ means don't change the position. It's the absolute position. So it's going to be, it must be C and it must be 2. And then the colon means all the way to C. And when you have no number, that means all the way to the bottom. And then we're going to go ahead and make it an equal sign here. So we're going to sum. If they match this condition, we're going to sum them up. So it's going to be so far just one person, so that's going to be 1. If there were 2 people, it'd be 2. If there are 3 people, it'd be 3. And we're going to go ahead and divide that by NC2 and divide it by C2. If we look at this formula more closely, we can break it down step by step. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. Try to follow me. And of course, you can always use AI to ask for input on any part of this function. So what we're saying is that if C2 is not NA, so C2 over here, meaning group numbers. So if this group number did not have a number, because I did not want to have so many groups, in other words, I don't want to have thousands of groups. I only want to have the groups I listed here. So group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way down. If it's not NA, then you go ahead and you take the J2, which remember was 3, and we're going to subtract the sum if from the join group. So this join group here, where does this come from? This comes from this tab down here where the data came from the form. And we're going to specifically look for the column of C, from C2 all the way down to C. So when you list the C with no number, that means it goes all the way down to the bottom. So we're going to sum, that means total, if they have a value and that value is equal to, and then right here we have this C2. So this is getting confusing, right? We got to really focus and pay attention here to what do you mean this C2? Well, this C2 is not the same as this C2 because this C2 is join group C2, and you see you have this explanation point here. So this means from this tab, this column. But here we just have C2 without any explanation point and no name here. So we have no tab here. It's just C2. This C2 is this C2 right here, right? C and then 2 right over here, C2. So this C2 is 1. So what this is telling us, telling Excel to do, or I should say Google Sheet, what it's telling Google Sheet to do is go ahead and see if you can match these numbers. If you can find any number 1 inside of the join group in the C column, and if you find 1, then go ahead and make it a sum. So this sum if means if this is true, then sum it up, make a total. So what we're doing is we're finding 1 and we're adding up the ones, and then we're going to go ahead and do a little bit more work here in this little piece here. Now what's this little piece here? Well, because we're doing sum and we're doing the if. So let's think about this for a moment. Let me change my color here. So I'll use blue. If we had the responses, and the responses were maybe group 1, and then somebody chose group 5, and somebody chose group 5, and somebody chose group 5, and then somebody chose group 1 again. Okay, so what's going to happen is that this code is going to search this column for any matches of 1. So it's going to find what? It's going to find 1, and it's going to find 1. And then if it finds 1 and 1, it's going to add them together. That's the sum. So we're going to add up a total of 2 because 1 plus 1 is 2. What if we were down here at 5? Because this case is going to be a little bit different. This formula is going to be the same formula, but instead of saying C2, it's going to say C6 because we want to check for group 5. So C6, right? 6 is over here. Okay? So then what's it going to do? It's going to find 5, 5, and 5. So 5 plus 5 plus 5 equals 15. So obviously 15 does not help us, right? Because it's doing the sum. So what we want to do is we go ahead then and we divide by C2, which is going to be this number here. Or if the formula is down here, it's going to be divide by C6. So then that would be 15 divided by 5, which would equal 3. And here we're going to have 2, and we're going to have 2 divided by 2, which is going to be, well, in this case, it's going to be 2 divided by 1 would be 2. And in our case we have right now, we only have one person chose 1, so 1 divided by 1 is 1, right? So you get the idea. Because of this sum if, we're doing a little bit of trickery here to figure out how many people have actually chosen that number. Now you may use a different function. You don't have to use the sum if. I'm just using this as an example of how I wrote the code. You may write the code differently. For example, finding out the frequency or the number of times that a specific number occurs. That's possible too.